I wasn't going to cover everything that was going on with the situation with Jimmy Kimmel, but y'all know my ears perked up as soon as they started talking about lawsuits. All right. So we are not going to have any lawsuits as of yet, but I had to follow up with this Jimmy Kimmel situation because we covered it already, because it's looking like Jimmy, he got his job back. Wow. We talked about it yesterday and in another video. And if you guys want to see my initial thoughts on what happened with did I say Jimmy Fallon? Hopefully I didn't. Shout out to Jimmy Fallon. Y'all need to get different names. Jimmy Kimmel. All right. Shout out to Jimmy Kimmel. I gave my initial thoughts on Jimmy Kimmel and this whole situation. I said, honestly, I didn't see the big deal with what he said. It didn't seem that bad. It didn't seem to be inciting violence. And honestly, I said the FCC's involvement in this and their comments seem to be a gray area and somewhat out of bounds. Right now, we're actually going to get to hear from the FCC chair. It's looking like he may be backtracking. I know. Not a great look here. And Jimmy Kimmel is going to be back on the airwaves tonight. So if you're wondering what happened, or if you're not familiar with what's going on, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to play the instance that allegedly got his show preempted or suspended, whatever you want to call it, for, I guess, I don't know, less than a week. And this is where this was the moment when things started to get heated. Check it out.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get.
This really happened, by the way. So again, great comedy work by Jimmy Kimmel.
As you know, for about 150 years, and it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. Okay. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
Hey, again, I looked at this. As much as I'm not a fan of Jimmy Kimmel, I thought this was objectively funny. He didn't. I think the overreaction to what he said, it was a little bit much. So now maybe the FCC chair agrees with me, because it seems like he might be backtracking a little bit, as we have a report here from MSNBC and the FCC chair speaks out. Listen to what he had to say.
Trump will deliver a speech to the 80th United Nations General Assembly. He arrived in New York City for the event last night. According to the White House, the president will talk about the renewal of American strength around the world, touting his leadership during the first 8 months in office. He's also expected to take part in several high-stakes meetings, holding discussions with the leaders of Ukraine, Argentina, and the European Union, as well as a separate summit with the heads of several Arab countries. Officials tell Axios the president will present them with a proposal to end the war in Gaza. The UN comes against the backdrop of Jimmy Kimmel Live being back on ABC's airwaves tonight. It comes nearly 1 week after the network suspended the late-night host amid threats of regulatory action from the FCC chair over Kimmel's comments about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Disney, which owns ABC, announced the return in a statement yesterday, writing, quote, "Last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. It's a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We've spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy, and after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday."
And again, I use several references in this case. 9/11 happening, huge tragedy, right? And then we have this situation with Charlie Kirk, the Charlie Kirk assassination, huge tragedy. Have there been comedians and have there been people who have platforms make jokes and make light of things because that's what they do shortly after these things happen? Yes. Is it right? Not necessarily. But by Disney saying this, oh, we just tried to step in because we know things are sensitive and it was bad timing because it just happened. All right, guys, but it's a part of his job. All right. So again, it seemed like it wasn't a big deal to me, but at the end of the day, Disney, if they decide they want to fire someone because of that, they have the right to. It's their company, their platform. They can do what they want. Let's keep it going.
Some households, however, may still not see that show. Sinclair, which operates more than 30 ABC affiliates across the U.S., says it will carry news programming instead of Kimmel's return, but discussions with ABC are ongoing. Nexstar, the other major ABC affiliate owner that preempted the talk show last week, has not yet said what it plans to do. This reversal from ABC comes after days of pushback from protesters, politicians, and performers. Yesterday, just before the announcement was made, more than 400 celebrities signed a letter saying this is a dark moment for freedom of speech in our nation. Several Republican lawmakers also spoke out against the FCC's pressure on ABC. Among them, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, calling it absolutely inappropriate, and Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, calling it dangerous as hell.
No.
Meanwhile, FCC Chairman Brendan
dramatic.
Carr is attempting to clarify his controversial comments about Kimmel, denying that he threatened to revoke the broadcast licenses of ABC affiliates unless the network fired the late-night host. Here's what Carr said last week, followed by his new explanation yesterday.
Oh, he's backtracking.
You know, when you look at the conduct that has taken place by Jimmy Kimmel, it appears to be some of the sickest conduct possible. Frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. These companies can find ways to change conduct, to take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or, you know, there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead. A very reasonable, minimal step that can be taken. I mean, obviously, look, there's calls for Kimmel to be fired. I think, you know, you could certainly see a path forward for suspension over this. And again, you know, the FCC is going to have remedies that we could look at.
A lot of Democrats out there that are engaged in a campaign of projection and distortion. And distortion is they're completely misrepresenting the work of the FCC and what we've been doing. I saw there was a letter from some Senate Democrats that said the FCC threatened to revoke the license of Disney and ABC if they didn't fire Jimmy Kimmel, and that did not happen in any way, shape.
Oh, bro, come on, man. Why is the FCC chair up here lying? He said, hey, listen, guys, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way. What do you mean you didn't threaten them? Come on, bro.
Of Disney and ABC if they didn't fire Jimmy Kimmel, and that did not happen in any way, shape, or form. And what I spoke about last week was that when concerns are raised about news distortion, there's an easy way for parties to address that and work that out. And in the main, that takes place between local television stations that are licensed by the FCC and what we call national programmers like Disney. They work that out, and there doesn't need to be any involvement of the FCC. Now, if they don't, there's a way that's not as easy, which is someone can file a complaint at the FCC, and then the FCC, by law, as set up by Congress, has to adjudicate that complaint. And what I've been very clear in the context of the Kimmel episode is the FCC, and myself in particular, have expressed no view on the ultimate merits had something like that been filed.
So he's basically saying, listen, it wasn't a threat. All that I was saying is if some amazing American citizen, maybe someone who's a part of MAGA, they feel offended by this and we get 10,000 complaints to the FCC, guys, we're going to have to step in. I don't want to do that. So, hey, Disney, Nexstar, all these companies, y'all need to go ahead and handle this situation, because if I get a complaint on my doorstep, FCC is going to come knocking. I get what he's saying. It didn't sound that way when he said it the first time. And we could go back and listen to it, but I'm going to leave Mr. Carr alone and we'll keep it moving.
A lot to get to this morning. National political reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Ken Thomas, joining us on a number of topics. Always great to have you here. I want to start right there with what we see from the FCC chairman clearly making a reversal here, and ABC making a reversal of their own, saying that the suspension is over for Kimmel, that he's coming back on the air tonight. Where do you think that the pressure on both sides came from, right? Why do you see the FCC chairman reversing course on his language that was pretty clear in the, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way? I think everyone heard what he was saying there. So where does that reversal come from, and what pressure do you think ABC was facing?
Well, I think Rand Paul and Ted Cruz speaking out about this had an impact. I mean, the Cruz comments about, comparing this to almost to Goodfellas certainly resonated with the public. Cruz is a former Supreme Court clerk, free speech advocate. So I think that certainly had an impact. But, there's certainly pressure from the left here. But, the genie is really out of the bottle. Whether there was a direct threat or not, there was certainly a strong suggestion that the FCC was going to do work, as he put it. So I think this is one of those hard things that it's very difficult to really pull back. And it's clear that the president supports Brendan Carr here. So, it's just hard to imagine that, people would act differently based on, the circumstances.
Especially given.
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, the FCC chair, as a lot of these, we'll call them a politician, or we'll say people in power, a lot of them have a great way with words. And he could somewhat backtrack and say, hey, listen, it wasn't a threat. I was just saying, I got to do what I got to do. I think I'm going to call cap on that FCC chair. And clearly he sent the message that wanted to be sent because, as we saw, he was preempted, right? Jimmy was preempted. He was suspended indefinitely, and now he's going to be back. So let's look at this article here and see what CNBC has to say about this, about Jimmy Kimmel returning on Tuesday, which is today. Congratulations to Jimmy Kimmel and his trash program. I still stand on it. Jimmy Kimmel, for the most part, I'm not a fan. All right. Not a fan at all, but he has some funny points. Let's see what they have to say.
News, Julia Borston with that for us. Julia?
Big news here is that Jimmy Kimmel is returning to his show. Disney issuing in a statement saying, quote, last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country, saying it is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy, and after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday. So, Scott, Jimmy Kimmel live returning tomorrow. I'm sure many of us will be watching to see what he says. Back over to you.
Yeah. Can you speak at all, Julia, to the pressure that Disney really has been under from both sides, if you want to say it that way, to make the decision that they did around Mr. Kimmel and his show, but also when you have the likes of, Howard Stern, for example, on his own SiriusXM show saying that he was canceling Disney Plus and his subscription because of the way that Disney had treated Jimmy Kimmel. So it put Disney in a bit of a rough spot.
Yeah, and do you guys think there were reports out there that Disney was losing billions of dollars in their market? Their stock was declining because of this, or since this had happened. Do you guys really think that this had a play into them making the decision, or is it true what Disney said and they actually had to sit down with Jimmy and they were able to come to a resolution? I want to know what y'all think about that in the comments in the chat.
Yeah, certainly Disney and CEO Bob Iger under quite a bit of pressure from both sides here. Number of people, industry sources telling me they feel like Iger should have communicated more clearly about the pressure he was under from the Nexstar and Sinclairs of the world, those local station owners who raised concerns and said themselves that they were not going to be able to air the show on to their local networks. So he was under pressure from that side. And then on the other side, we did hear from Howard Stern and then other powerful showrunners and filmmakers, such as Damon Lindelof, the creator of Lost, saying that they wouldn't work with Disney unless Bob Iger reversed this decision. So obviously there are financial pieces of this at play as well, not just the pressure from the station owners, but also from advertisers. And then also the question of how much money Jimmy Kimmel Live makes. And this is a show that is profitable, especially when taking into consideration the value generated on platforms like YouTube, where Jimmy Kimmel Live is the most popular of all of the late night shows on.
Yeah, and we'll have to wait and see how long this incident sustains Jimmy Kimmel's career. And maybe this was a calculated move on his part. But again, I don't think the joke was that bad. So I find it hard to believe that Jimmy Kimmel was sitting somewhere thinking, oh, yeah, I got to make this joke. And then they're going to suspend me. And then they're going to bring me back. And then people are going to be outraged. I don't think that's what happened. So it'll be interesting to see how his career is sustained because of this, because as we mentioned in the last video, looking at the facts over the feelings, Jimmy Kimmel's show was not doing good at all. And it is clear to see that he was the next on the chopping block. He's going to garner more support for this. The question is, how much longer is that going to last? I don't know. We'll have to see the numbers in the next coming months. All right. What did they say? The decision was announced by Disney nearly a week after ABC said it was suspending the late night show indefinitely. The network had pulled the show days after the host made comments linking the alleged killer of conservative activist Charlie Kirk to President Donald Trump's MAGA movement. Last Wednesday, we made a decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and insensitive. Disney said in a statement yesterday, "We have spent the last day having thoughtful conversation with Jimmy, and after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday." Now, again, I'm going to be tuning in for this, as the reporter said, because I want to hear what Jimmy's going to say, and we'll be talking about it on the show tomorrow. Do you guys think there's going to be an apology? Do you think Jimmy's going to triple down, because he already doubled down on this? Do you think he's going to triple down and he's going to make more jokes in somewhat of a Dave Chappelle type way? It'll be interesting to see what happens. The late night show host will address the matter during his show set to be taped on Tuesday, according to a person familiar with the matter who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal matters. The following days of discussions, Disney CEO Bob Iger and Dana Walden, co-chair of Disney's entertainment, made the decision to return the show to air, the person said. The two executives informed Kimmel on Monday, the person added. Local station owners learned the show's return on Monday when Disney made the public announcement, according to two people familiar with the matter. All right. So now we're going to hear basically why this happened in the first place and what's being reported happened behind the scenes with this conversation. Here we go. Shout out to MSNBC on this one.
Right now, the breaking news that in this major reversal, Disney will bring Jimmy Kimmel back. That is a long ways from how they sounded last week, and that will be tomorrow. Disney and ABC announcing Kimmel goes back on the air despite these government Trump efforts to silence him tomorrow. Here is the statement. I'm going to read you exactly what Disney said so you can make sense of it yourself. Last Wednesday, we made the decision, these Disney executives say, to, quote, suspend production on the show, referring to Kimmel, to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. They continue today, quote, we have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy. And after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday. So that is the news, and that's how they're putting it. Of course, there's a lot more to this, and we're going to get into that right now. I'm curious, does this show that some amount of public pressure works?
Yeah, I think it shows quite clearly the resistance works. You know, this is a lesson that I think the American people understand. We saw it with the No Kings protest. We saw it with people canceling Disney Plus. But ever since Trump has been inaugurated in office, we have seen the elites in this country, the CEO class, take the opposite lesson. I do think that Bob Iger's decision to settle with Trump and give money to his presidential library in December of last year actually set a tone of elite submission that we have seen throughout media. We have seen it throughout academia. We've seen it with the law firms, et cetera. It's the actual regular Americans who have stood up and made a difference.
Howard?
I think that's exactly right. And, that what Oliver, minus one word, had to say about bullies is exactly right. And the amazing thing to me is the cowardice of the huge corporations. And Iger is not known for that. And he, I think, finally realized that this was going to be a huge problem. But look at all the tech companies, which are gazillionaires. They're kissing Trump's you-know-what all the time. And that is not a winning strategy in the long run. And I think consumers just proved to Disney it was not a winning strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely agree with that, and well said by both of them. I think there were 2 points made in this entire situation, and I want to know what you all think about this. The first point was the conversation we had yesterday in the last video about this. The first point is these are companies and these are private companies that can do whatever they want to. And at the end of the day, it's their platform, it's their company. And if they feel like you say something that they don't like or they don't agree with or doesn't represent them well or was ill-timed or insensitive, they can get you up out of there for any reason and no reason at all. But on the other side, I think this is going to be an interesting point in history for our country when it comes to the power of the people, because a lot of people were outraged by this. They said they canceled Disney Plus. They're canceling anything associated with Disney. They're even canceling Fox. They're not going to be watching Disney. You hear people saying they're not going to work with Disney if they don't do this. Whether that was a part of the decision by Disney to bring Jimmy Kimmel back or not, how it's viewed by the people is going to be different. And they're going to see the power that they can have if they put their money where their mouth is, literally. So I'll be interested to see how this plays into factor moving forward, especially with how tumultuous and how divisive things have been recently. I want y'all to let me know what you think about this in the comments and in the chat.